Good morning, beautiful people. How are you all doing? It is a beautiful day. Sending lots of love and good vibes. I love all of you. Today, we're going to be talking about tariffs. Woo! If you all remember, I was talking about tariffs, I think, before a lot of other people were. I was talking about them back in October, maybe even September. Do you all remember? And now everyone's about to start talking about tariffs. I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. Time and time again. Like I am unpacking and giving you all heads up about things that are likely to happen or likely to be important. And all of a sudden they become important and everyone's like shocked. And I'm like, I was saying it all along. Anyway, how are you all doing? So today we're going to be talking about tariffs. All right. So do we know what a tariff is? Do we know what tariffs are? And make sure you're sending some likes as you're jumping in here. I love all of you. I am here just reporting on what we are seeing, what is happening. And I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here just breaking down how things work. And also what the science, the data, the statistics, all of that shows. What the power policymakers are doing. And you can decide whether you think that it's good or bad, but just make sure you root your thinking as being critical and empathetic. So do you all know what tariffs are? Before I go into all of this, which actually, let me just go ahead and read it. So Donald Trump, our president, went on his Truth Social platform and was like, hold on, I need the hands for it to have the maximum effect here. He said, "The tariff lobby, headed by the globalists and always wrong Wall Street Journal, is working hard to justify countries like Canada, Mexico, and China, and too many others to name to continue the decades-long ripoff of America." Now, do you all know what a tariff is? Do you all know what a tariff is? Answer in the chat below if you know what it is. So a tariff is a tax on an imported good. That's simply what a tariff is. So tariffs are a form of tax applied on imports from other countries. And economists say that the costs of tariffs are largely passed on to consumers, you and me. So if they put a 25% tariff on chocolate, then you're going to pay 25% more as your price. So the people who pay for tariffs, you and me. You and me. That's how tariffs work. It is a self-applied tax in the theory of trying to become competitive. Now, there is theory and then there is practice. So something might sound really good in theory, but in practice can be really disastrous, and vice versa. So, we're going to be talking all about tariffs. Now, as I pointed out in here, tariffs are largely passed on to the consumer. So, it is a self-implied tax where the consumers, you and me, will pay more for goods. And in Donald Trump's, one of his posts, he said, this will be the golden age of America. And by the way, for all the people, can you all just listen in the chat here before you start rage typing? Just listen for a second. Just listen. Okay? He said, "This will be the golden age of America. Will there be some pain? Yes. Yes, maybe and maybe not. We will make America great again, and it will be all worth the price that must be paid. It will all be worth the price. It must be paid." And so when I saw that, he's like, it made me think of the Lord Farquaad meme. This one right here. So it was like Trump on tariffs. Will there be pain? Yes, maybe, and maybe not. But it will all be worth the price that must be paid. It reminded me of some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice that I am willing to make. So do y'all remember that moment in Shrek? So when I saw that Donald Trump was like saying this about tariffs, when I saw he was like, there will be some pain. Yes, there might be some pain. You know, might feel a little bit of pain here, a little bit of wheezing there, a little bit of a rash there. But let me tell you, the price to be paid, it will be great. It will be worth it. It will be fantastic. It will be incredible. It will be outstanding. It's again like, some of you may die, but that is the sacrifice that I am willing to make. Americans will be paying more for consumer goods, but that is a price that I, Donald Trump, am willing to pay. So let's actually dive into tariffs itself. And I want to do a quick little exercise before we actually get there. To those of you that are quiet listeners, that enjoy the live stream, that maybe have me on in the background while you're work, or maybe you're making the little kids lunches, or you're getting ready for the day, I love all of you. If you're a quiet listener and you enjoy these lives, just type yes. Just comment yes in the chat. Because we have some very loudmouth, kind of obnoxious and drama-seeking people this morning. And as always, there's like so few of them, but they take up so much of the space. So if you're a quiet listener and you just enjoy these lives, just quickly comment yes. Because what it does is it shows how many people in here are also those quiet listeners. And it also shows those people that we're just tired of their crap. So just stop. Just stop. So I appreciate all of you. Even if you don't like me, okay? I'm here just breaking down the raw information. And you want to see something that's really interesting? As soon as I do that exercise, this goes down. Because they all scroll away, which is good in some cases. Though also, what that shows is they're not here to learn, they're not here to listen, they're not here to understand, they're here to try and rage type. So, it's important for us to not give those people the space, you know? So, you're like, okay, well, why are you talking about tariffs? What's the whole thing? Why in the world are you talking about these things? Well, over the weekend, Donald Trump signed several executive orders that actually were about tariffs. So, Trump follows through with high tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. It's terrifying and nauseating to watch President Trump and his Republican allies in Congress celebrate as they impose tariffs that will raise the cost for the rest of us, one advocate said. So, over the weekend, U.S. President Donald Trump signed 3 executive orders on Saturday, following through on his promise to impose 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada, and 10% on tariffs on goods from China, which those are our biggest trading partners. Now, again, for those of you who are like, well, I still don't know what a tariff is, I don't understand how they work, don't worry, we're going to be covering all of that. Part of why I do these live streams, part of why I do them, is it's not easy trying to understand this stuff. And it's anxiety inducing. It's like, who do you trust? Who actually takes this stuff seriously? I'm not here trying to tell you what to think or what to believe. I'm here to help you think critically for yourself and to understand how these things work. If you and I are looking at the same data, we're looking at the same thing, the same raw facts, and you come to one conclusion about what you think is important or what you think needs to happen, that's cool. I will disagree with you, and that's fine. What's not up for debate are the actual raw facts itself. The raw facts of tariffs is that it raises the price of goods for consumers. That's just what they do. And I'm going to explain how, by the numbers, it all works. So a tariff is a tax on an imported good. So a foreign-made good. So whenever you have silk that is made in China, if we import that in the United States, then the tariff is going to be 25% more of the price for that silk. So that's how a tariff works. It's not that we ourselves, it's not that China is imposing that price increase on us. A tariff is a self-applied tax. And it's done as a way to, in theory, to be competitive to our domestically made goods made here in America, to be more competitive. But in practice, what it often does is it just raises the price of everything and inflation skyrockets. So let's break it all down, shall we? A tariff is a tax on an imposed foreign good that is paid by the importing business to its home country's government. So I want to point out that tariffs have been done under the former Biden administration and the former Trump administration, and now this one. So tariffs are not anything like super, super new. The scale in which these tariffs are being applied is much larger than previously. So tariffs are paid by the consumer, and we're going to be getting into why all of that is. Now, Wall Street Journal's survey of economists were like, yeah, Donald Trump's economic plans are going to skyrocket inflation compared to Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. Part of that is because of the tariffs. Now, to remind you all, Donald Trump said, quote, "Without tariffs, we have a busted country." In an interview with Maria Bartiromo, this is back in October, Donald Trump said, "If I get elected, I will put a 200% tariff." Hold on, let me do my hands. If I get elected, I will put a 200% tariff on every car. You'll never be able to sell them in the United States. You won't be able to sell them. If you put a 200% tariff on a product, that's only going to mean high. Oh, wait, hold on. That's not him saying it. So Maria Bartiromo was like, okay, if you put a 200% tariff, a 200% increase in the price on a product, it's only going to mean higher prices for consumers. It's going to be passed on somehow. And Trump was like, put 200, 500, I don't care. I'll put a number where they cannot sell one car. And so he also called himself Tariff Man. So this is all just stuff that he promised back on the campaign trail. Now, initially, he said that he wanted to do 60% tariff on goods coming from China and 20% on everything else. Well, we are now seeing tariffs on Mexico and Canada at 25%. So he has kind of changed sort of followed through, but somewhat not followed through on his campaign promise. That's just facts. So right now, under Donald Trump's leadership, they're doing a 10% tariff. They're doing a 10% tariff on stuff coming from China, but 25% on Canada and Mexico. So he's kind of changed up even his original plan of what he was following through on. So now, in the aftermath of Donald Trump putting tariffs on do a self-implied tariff tax on our things, Canada quickly responded over the weekend, putting tariffs on U.S.-made products. So Trump put tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, spurring trade war as North American allies respond. And now you have Canada actually putting tariffs on us. So with all of that, the action today by the White House split us apart instead of bringing us together. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in a somber tone, announcing that Canada, his country, would put a matching 25% tariff on up to $155 billion in worth of U.S. imports. So we're all about to start paying higher prices because of this trade war. That's how it's all happening. That's how this is all working out. Now, tariffs are an important strategic economic tool, but Trump's desire for a trade war with Canada and Mexico won't protect jobs, keep Americans safe, or bring costs down, says Elizabeth Warren, Democratic senator from Massachusetts. You can interpret that however you want. Now, what's really interesting is that in Common Dreams, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit news media outlet, I try to use I try to go for sources that are nonpartisan and not like hugely corporate media. So Common Dreams, Truth Out is another really, really good one. The Lever, Mother Jones, Media Matters for America. These are all nonpartisan, nonprofit outlets that aren't trying to misinform you for some sort of political gain. So that's why I like going to them. They rightly cited here that U.S. voters' frustration with inflation, and it has been cited that that is the reason why Trump won in 2024. Because Americans largely were under the impression that Donald Trump was going to bring down inflation. Well, tariffs do quite the opposite. And I don't want to toot my own horn here. I was talking about this back in October. Do you all remember when I was talking about tariffs? It's so funny. If you remember, were you all in my live streams when I was talking about tariffs? I was covering the same thing. When Donald Trump initially had that interview with Maria Bartiromo, the one I just referenced here, where he said that he's going to put tariffs on goods. I was like, this is a bad idea because it's going to raise prices for everything. Do you all remember that? I know some of you were in here. Oh yeah, it's me, Pam, Akicha, Vonda. Yeah. It's like I was talking about that before it was even he was even elected. So not trying to like be like, oh my God, I'm amazing. I'm just simply pointing out I was talking about it before it was all there. Anyway. Yeah. Marshmallow and Banner, Oliver and Iris. Yeah. And Oma. Good morning. So let's actually break down how tariffs work. All right. Let's break down how tariffs work. So a tariff is a tax on an imported good. That's simply what it is. It is self-prescribed. So we, as the United States, are putting a tax on imported goods from Canada and from Mexico. So let's just give an example. Something from Canada is maple syrup. That's just one small good from Canada. If we put a tariff on Canadian maple syrup, that's going to increase the price by 25%. Because if you're a business owner, if you are selling maple syrup to the United States, and the United States says, we're going to put a tariff on your good, it's going to raise the price by 25%. Well, you were initially selling it at X. Now it's going to be more expensive. And now those consumers are going to be paying more for that price. But what's also interesting is that tariffs also raise the cost of our own US-made products. So tariffs, the fact is that tariff barriers weaken the middle class. In short term, they raise consumer prices. In the medium term, they weaken the nation's manufacturing competitiveness and undermine middle-class jobs. Now, when the government imposes a tariff, a tax on imported goods, that money comes from someone. Although the importer actually pays the money to the government. That cost ends up getting shared among the exporter in the foreign country and the importing country in the US, and the consumer. Who pays how much depends on the product in question. So what kind of substitutes are available, all of that stuff. So the foreign exporter might reduce the prices a bit to preserve the relationship with the customer, or the American importer might swallow some of that cost, and at least some of the cost falls finally on the consumer as a higher price tag. So let's say that you put a tariff on electronics coming from China. So some of the biggest imports that we have from China are medical supplies, cars, oil, natural gas, petroleum. It's funny because I was preparing this morning live show and I forgot that graphic that showed our biggest, highest imports, but those are some of the biggest ones. Also, electronics is another really, really big one. So let's say that we put a tariff. The United States, we put a 25% tariff on electronics. Well, it's starting out at X price. Now, the idea of putting a tariff is that it will say, okay, U.S. consumers are going to have to buy that product for 25% more, which in theory, because the foreign products are more expensive, the American products look cheaper in comparison. Sure, that in theory makes a lot of sense. That's what Donald Trump's theory of why he's doing these things. Make sure to send some likes. I work really hard to do this morning live show. The way that tariffs theoretically work is that you impose a tariff on a tax on an imported good that your own citizens end up paying for. And the reason for that is you raise the price of this so that the citizens will go to a cheaper US made product. But what ends up happening oftentimes is that it doesn't necessarily mean that the consumers are going to go for the lesser product, the lesser price product. And US consumer or US manufacturers might also see this as an opportunity to price gouge. So if you raise the price of electronics coming from China by 25%, it was at X price, now it's at X times 25%. American products are going to be cheaper in comparison. Though, American companies see an opportunity to raise their price but still remain competitive. And you're like, well, what do you mean? If they raise it by 15% or 20%, hey, they're still less than the imported product. So people, if they want to go for the lesser option, are going to go for the 20% instead of the 25%. Do you see how oftentimes even doing tariffs on imported goods gives a green light for domestic manufacturers in the United States to also price gouge their own people, but remain just under? Think of it as if you have a lemonade stand, all right? Think of it as you have a lemonade stand in your neighborhood. And your friend enemy, over in the neighborhood next to you also starts selling lemonade. And in a sense, it's like, let's say that you trade lemonade back and forth with each other. If you have, your friend's lemonade is going to be 25% more. Let's say that you both have one is strawberry lemonade, one is the original recipe. Let's say that you sell both of them at both places. So it's like, okay, I will sell your lemonade at my stand, but it's going to be 25% more expensive. So I might not sell a lot of your product. Do you see how what that actually ends up doing is allowing for the opportunity to price gouge? Let me give you a better example. So take the example of steel. The US produces most of the steel that we consume. But when we impose a tariff on imported steel, let's say that it's from Canada, let's say that's from Mexico or China, domestic producers of steel see an opportunity to raise their own price. As a result, the cost of producing things made with steel in the US goes up. This is true in any production affected by tariffs. Shoes become more expensive to produce if we levy a tariff on leather. Grocery stores will see that costs increase if we levy tariffs on fresh produce. Books and newspapers become costlier to produce if we tax imports of paper. In markets where substitutes are not readily available, avocados in winter, for example, or gasoline, consumers will see prices rise almost in lockstep with the tariff. So, if I am a domestic producer of steel and the United States decides to put a 25% tariff on steel, and y'all please make sure to send some likes. I work really hard to break all of this down. I rely on you all to help me spread this live stream on TikTok, so I really appreciate it. I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. I have to work twice as hard as some of these other content creators just to get to people's For You pages, because people don't like the information, the truth, and the raw stuff that I talk about. And I'm not one of these provocative drama-seeking political creators that seeks to just stir up drama. So I have to work twice as hard to get to people's For You pages. So that's why I really rely on you all. So thank you for all being here. I love all of you. It seriously means the world. So with tariffs, we're all going to pay the price. That's how it works. Yeehaw! Thank you. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Ashton. I like being a little gay cowboy. I think it's fun. So we're all going to pay the price because if we put a 25% tariff on steel coming from China, domestic producers won't just keep their price here. People are going to buy the cheaper price. People are going to buy the cheaper product, whether it is at the same X price, or if it's X times 10% or 15%. So what tariffs do is you're imposing a threshold itself on the price, but also it becomes this little game theory where then domestic producers see an opportunity to raise their own prices. And if you put a tariff on, then other countries will do the same for your goods. So this is how it's all working. You're like, okay, well, I understand how tariffs work. And Donald Trump has put on some tariffs on our goods. What are we expecting? Well, the tariffs, if sustained, could cause inflation to significantly worsen, threatening the trust that many voters placed in Trump to lower the prices of groceries, gasoline, housing, automobiles, and other goods as promised. They also risk throwing the global economy and Trump's political mandate into turmoil just 2 weeks into office. And of course, a lot of people are specifically talking about how, tariffs would be bad for the economy. And it's interesting because this person, who's a small business owner, said, but after promising to lower costs, Republicans seem set to deliver quite the opposite. Because of these tariffs, we'll be paying higher costs for construction, just among other things else, to help Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump get bigger and bigger tax breaks to their billionaire friends and big corporations. And it leaves us all wondering, who are our leaders in Washington really working for? Now, when we look at all of this, Representative Greg Stanton put together saying, okay, these are very, very popular products coming from Canada and from Mexico. We're going to see the price increase for all of these things. Even if, well, let's just look at avocados. There's not too many avocados really grown in the U.S. Even if we put a 25% tariff on avocados, U.S. producers will also likely raise their price because people will be flocking to the U.S. producer, which is good. The idea of tariffs is that it's going to increase domestic manufacturing, but at what cost? A cost for the consumer. Basically, that's why Donald Trump was saying, and that's why I was joking when he specifically was like, will there be some pain? Yes, maybe and maybe not, but it will all be worth the price that must be paid. Donald Trump knows that tariffs are going to raise the prices for consumers. His thing is that, okay, we as citizens have to pay to bring manufacturing back to the United States. That's not fair. We are already paying so much to the government. We already are being nickel and dimed by massive corporations. Instead of us having to pay for the transition of going back to US-made domestic manufacturing, we shouldn't be paying the price for that. That is not fair. That is not okay. But yet that's exactly what's going to happen. But it's all even theoretical. Because again, if you have the avocados, 25% tariff on those, the US producers of avocados are going to benefit because they're going to be the cheaper product. But they're also going to be the cheaper product no matter if they're here or if they're at 10% more or 20% more. So we all start paying higher prices for everything, and it starts bleeding American pockets even more dry than they are. Let me just also put it in perspective here that this is some of Donald Trump's tax cuts for the rich back at the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act back in 2017. Specifically, his thing was like reducing taxes on the wealthy, but if you get the increases of tariffs on everyone's going to be paying higher prices. So you can see right here, the poorest 20% are going to be paying 5.7% more. Second 20 will be paying 5.1% of their income more. Middle class, 4.6% of their income more. And as you can see over here. But when you do tax cuts for the wealthy, it's going to be a bigger tax cut than they're going to have to pay in higher prices. So what it ends up doing is the poorest Americans, because of tariffs, will be paying more for goods, while the wealthy, because they get a tax cut, yes, they'll be paying more for goods, but it doesn't outweigh how much of a tax cut they get. Here's another example. This might be easier for people to see. Because of the tariffs that are going to be imposed on the United States, we're all going to be paying more for goods. The lowest class, working class, middle class over here. Because the tax cuts for the wealthy, they get such a massive cut. Even though they're paying more for goods like everyone else, because they have that tax cut, it means that they're having to pay less. Which, that's not fair. It's not fair that this is how this is all working. So, there are study after study after study that comes out about tariffs. Talking about how the fiscal effects of the Trump administration's imposed tariffs, how it's going to lower... Yeehaw! Thank you! Oh my goodness. So people tell me if I have a cowboy name, it would be Slim. I think that's a fun cowboy name. Yo, what up, Slim? Anyway, there is scientific study after scientific study talking all about tariffs, even from conservative think tanks like the Cato Institute. The Cato Institute, there's another one, even was, here it is. Hold on. Wait, here it is. Even talking about all of these things. So tariffs are going to raise the prices for consumers. That's what they do. We're all going to be paying higher prices for all of it. I have nothing else to say there. That's really how it works. Like, we're all going to be paying higher prices for everything. For everything. The gas that you need to go to work, the food you need to feed your kids. Someone just says consume less. Gee, you know, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of trying to eliminate the unnecessary kinds of expenses that I have here. You know, if I'm trying to save money, maybe, you know what, just consume less. Maybe I won't use, you know what, I'm just going to start walking. I'm just going to start walking 15 miles to work instead, you know, who needs gas? I'll just consume less, you know? I love how those people really think that they're onto something. Cut out eggs. Yeah, you know, it's not like if I'm a bakery, you know, you know what, we can do without the eggs, right? You know, eggs are going to be more expensive, so we're going to have to raise the price of all of our baked goods, you know. But you know, we only need to get rid of the other stuff. I just want to say, for maybe like the one or two far right people in here, it's okay to admit that tariffs negatively impact the consumer. It's okay. You are not. You can be a critical thinker. Look at the data that is here. You want to know why there was some inflation during the Biden administration? Part of it was because Joe Biden kept some of the Trump tariffs. And you're like, wait, what? Yes. The Biden administration kept most of the Trump administration tariffs in place. Though, the Biden administration narrowed them a little bit to be more specific on certain goods. Part of the reason that we saw inflation coming out of the global pandemic is because supply chains kind of got messed up. But then also corporations saw the opportunity to price gouge. It's okay to change your mind when presented with new information. 100%. 100%. And he actually did add tariffs to China. 100%. So, yearly mom, I'm not going to get into some of that, like, kind of speculation. I'm not here to kind of give you necessarily my opinion. The problem with them is that they don't admit when they're wrong. 100%. Like, it's okay. You're not less of a human being. You're not like, actually, I would look up to so many more people if they would admit when they're incorrect. Because I do that. When I'm incorrect about something, then I will immediately be like, oh, yeah, I messed that up. Sorry about that. I think there's this, like, toxic masculinity that you have to double down and be correct on everything. Otherwise, like, you are somehow inferior. Which, actually, I think it takes more courage to actually say, yeah, you know what? We were incorrect about this. Tariffs are a bad idea. Tariffs are a bad idea. Like, pure, raw, and simple. We shouldn't be doing them. If we want to increase domestic manufacturing, which I think is a great idea, which is something that we need to do, instead of doing tariffs, which is like a negative reinforcement mechanism, maybe instead of trying to do this little like trade war price gouge thing, we should just be offering incentives for companies to bring their domestic manufacturing here. We should be doing some things to attract Americans, attract corporations to come here to America. That would be helpful. That would be nice. I love how Stephanie is saying that kind of thing. It's not like I put up scientific study after scientific study, put things in context. So Stephanie says, tell me you know nothing without telling me you know nothing. Tell me that you are doing projection without telling me that you're doing projection. Because those comments are 100% projection. Meaning that you're accusing me of doing the exact same things that you yourself are doing. And that is like MAGA 101. That is like the pinnacle of MAGA is to constantly be pointing fingers at everyone else for things that they are in fact doing. All the time. It's a lot of like super religious people that are very, very homophobic end up doing like really, really awful things. And they're like, yeah, I'm not sinful, you are. It's like, so like, tell me that you are the pinnacle example of projection without telling me that you are the pinnacle example of projection. Do you go to the mall and get them threaded? Get what threaded? So that is how tariffs work. And I wanted to just provide all of that in here. And I'm going to be posting this later on. Hold on just a second. I'm going to be posting this later on. How Donald Trump is like saying this about tariffs. How, you know, we're all going to be paying the price for all of it. He's like, the tariff lobby, headed by the globalists, and always wrong. Hold on, I need the hands. And always wrong, Wall Street Journal is working hard to justify countries like Canada and Mexico and China, and too many others to name to continue the decades-long ripoff of America. And let me tell you that will there be some pain? Yes, maybe there will be some pain. Maybe in the backside, maybe in the armpit, maybe between the toes, there might be some pain. It might be a rash, it might be an itch, it might be a scratch, you never know. There might be some pain, maybe in your pocketbook. Maybe your pocketbook, get all those paper cuts from those dollar bills. I get lots of paper cuts from dollar bills, let me tell you. They hurt. Why do you think I point so much with my fingers? But let me tell you, will there be some pain? Yes, maybe. And maybe not. But then again, it will all be worth the price that must be paid. Some of you may die. And that is a sacrifice that I am willing to make. Americans will pay higher prices for goods. But that is the sacrifice that I, billionaire, am willing to make. You can't make this stuff up, y'all. Anyway, I appreciate all of you. I wanted to just do that first rendition of the morning live show. I'm also going to talk a little bit about Trump voter remorse, but I'm just going to quickly restart the live stream. Unless you all just want to continue plugging away, I can absolutely do that. I love all of you. Does anyone have any actual good questions about tariffs that I might be able to answer? And I also want to point out, sarcasm, all the people who have been attempting to do whataboutisms and changing the conversation this morning. Have you all noticed that in the chat you have these ill-intentioned, drama-seeking, provocative rage typers that are trying to steer away the conversation? Like, if you see that, if you saw those comments, then just type yes. Those people that are like, what about this? What about that? Blah, blah, blah. Like trying to bait you into something. You know those people? I've seen them several times this morning. I just want to point out, every single time that I'm bringing up something that actually is heavily criticizing the, like, Republican policies, it always seems to be that these people are doing whatever they can to shift the subject. Because they physically cannot listen to the negative ramifications of their actions. That cognitive dissonance is so strong, where as soon as they receive information that goes against their pre-existing beliefs, they can't defend it. They run away. They say, what about this? What about that? It's the DEI. It's the critical race theory. It's Obama. It's the wokeness. It's the transgender people. It's always about, like, they try to immediately shift the conversation because they can't defend their points. They can't substantively back it up because they know that they are incorrect. But instead of actually being strong, a good person, they become rooted in their stubbornness and they can't admit when they're incorrect about something. They can't do it. Physically goes against the MAGA nature. MAGA is one of the most stubborn groups ever. As soon as you bring up information that goes against what they want to believe, yeah, and they resort to name calling. 100%. 100%. They will just go right into name calling. As soon as they are confronted on a piece of information that they're being corrected on, it's a personal attack instead of just awareness and education. It's really frustrating. Anyway, I saw that one of my friends in here had a genuine question, which was, what is the supposed long-term goal of tariffs? The supposed long-term goal of tariffs is theoretically to increase domestic manufacturing. That's what a tariff is supposed to do. What it's supposed to do is make the foreign goods so exorbitantly expensive that the goods imported from China, imported from Canada, imported from Mexico, you make those goods so expensive that consumers will flock and start only buying US-made goods. Theoretically, that's how it works. Though, what are the obstacles that might come into play? If you do that, you might have more domestically made products be purchased by US consumers. But at what cost? Because again, if you raise a tariff at 25% and the US price is down here, people will go to that. But the US companies, of course, the United States is all about individualism and also like working your way up in that American dream. US companies are immediately going to raise the price, be the cheaper alternative, but they're going to be cheaper than the other one, but they're going to see an opportunity to make more profit because people are going to buy the cheaper product, no matter if it is at X percent or even 10 times. Think of it like this. If all of a sudden chocolate, let's say that you have a US chocolate company and you have a Swedish chocolate company, and America decides to do a tariff on Swedish made chocolate as a way of incentivizing and getting consumers to buy US made chocolate. Well, if you do a tariff at 25%, people are going to buy the cheaper chocolate. Well, the idea is it's going to increase domestic manufacturing, but also that US company, that demand is going to be to buy the cheaper chocolate, whether it is at the same price, or maybe it might be the same at 10%. Think of it as if you kept it at the X price, instead of the X times 25% for the other foreign made chocolate. If you sold a whole bunch of stuff, but people would flock to that no matter what, you might be able to turn straw into gold, because people are willing to pay the price for cheaper chocolate no matter what it is, as long as it's underneath the most expensive one. It's the same way that these prescription drug companies will start price gouging you for life-saving medications. Because they might be able to produce it at a really, really cheap cost, sure, but you need that medication in order to stabilize your blood or have normal heart function or whatever. So they can turn a life-saving drug that might cost not very much to make into a huge cash cow, because you're willing to pay whatever the price is for that. So you're willing to pay whatever the price is as long as it's cheaper. And I would say cheaper enough. Does that all make sense? So the theory of tariffs is that it's supposed to increase domestic manufacturing. And you could say in some ways that it does, though also at what cost? And it's usually the cost of consumers having to pay for it. Instead, you're like, well, what is a possible way of going that's different about it? A different alternative could be trying to provide incentives, or having your tariffs be a little bit more targeted. Because another thing that might end up happening is the same country, if you put a 25% tariff on goods coming from Canada, they're going to put a 25% tariff on goods coming from the United States. So what does that do? That just increases the threshold of the price for everyone. Well, it doesn't achieve anything, because it immediately zeroes out and completely voids the whole purpose of a tariff. So what a tariff usually just ends up doing is it raises the prices for everything. Theoretically, it's supposed to just decrease, it's supposed to increase domestic manufacturing. But oftentimes, you're not accounting for other countries' actions. So you can't control other countries' actions. So putting a tariff in place, and then they put a tariff in place, everyone just pays 25% more. So that's how it all ends up working. I appreciate every single one of you. Do we want to talk about Trump voter remorse now? Do we want to shift topics and talk about Trump voter remorse? I talked about this a little bit back on, what was it? Back on Friday, but do we want to shift topics? If you do, then say yes. If not, then we can continue talking about tariffs. What's interesting, though, is that I was talking about tariffs back in October, and all of a sudden, everyone's now going to start talking about them. And it's like, I don't want to always say that I'm ahead of the curve, but like, just pointing it out. So I appreciate every single one of you. Y'all are awesome. We're almost at 30K likes. That's awesome. I do have a live goal, by the way. So if you want to contribute, that would be awesome. Also, for those of you who might not know, I am working on trying to beef up my other platforms as well. I just posted one of my live streams to YouTube last night, and I'm still trying to get into that groove there. It's not easy. But if you go to my profile, yeehaw! Thank you, C-Bar. You're awesome. If you go to my profile and you click on this link tree, you can find all of my other platforms. So I have my Instagram and my YouTube. I've been trying to post my live streams to YouTube, so if you end up missing a live stream, then you can go back and watch it. Also, after filming and posting my own live streams, in particular, I realize how much I use filler language. The am, but, so, Like, and it really bothers me. And I'm working on trying to eliminate as much of that filler language as possible because it just irks me. Anyway, so you can go and see all of my content there. And you can see YouTube, there's Blue Sky, Threads, X, Clapper, Fanbase. I think the main platforms I'm really focusing on are YouTube, Blue Sky, and TikTok. But I want to make sure that I'm beefing up other ones as well. And Clapper, actually. I seem to be doing all right on there. Anyway,